Again, thank you all for joining us. We are going to get started momentarily, and to get things underway, I will introduce you to Katie Day.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Day. I'm on the board of directors of the Maine Women's Conference, and I am so excited to welcome you all to this installment of our 2020-2021 WeAreME series. As many of you who are familiar with the Maine Women's Conference may know, our mission is to connect, educate, inspire, and empower one another so we're able to take on new and expanded roles in the workforce, in our lives, and in our communities. And this WeAreME series is really conceived against that mission. And we're so excited to be featuring gritty, determined, and inspirational women who are going to share their stories, the lessons they've learned, and their words of wisdom. So tonight, I am especially thrilled to be talking with human rights activist, nonprofit leader, and Mainer, Ekhlas Ahmed. Ekhlas, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me on.
And while I'm chatting with Ekhlas, we encourage you all to connect with your fellow attendees in the chat function, which is open. We'll be asking a couple of polls throughout the night, so please keep an eye out for those. We're also going to save time for your questions. So if you have any questions you'd like us to ask Ekhlas, please put them in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to those at the end of the night. So now that all of the housekeeping is out of the way, without further delay, Ekhlas, welcome again. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's jump right in. You have such an interesting story. So start at the beginning. Tell us about your childhood and what led your family to leave Sudan and come to Maine.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on as a part of Maine Women Conference. I am super excited to be here this evening. My name in Arabic is Ekhlas. In English, people call me Ekhlas, which I'm also fine with. I am originally from Darfur, Sudan. My family was one of those lucky ones who were able to escape an ongoing genocide that is still happening actually until today. It's happening in Darfur, Sudan. My family, I grew up in the capital of Sudan, in Khartoum, but my mom and my father and my grandparents are all were born and raised in Darfur. So it's a very beautiful area in Sudan, but it's unfortunately going through such a horrible time and has been going on since 2003. So my family made the decision to seek asylum from the United Nations, and that location, the closest location to us in Sudan is in Egypt, and that's how my family went through applying for asylum through Cairo, Egypt, and then we will be settled here in Portland, Maine in 2005.
Wow, that is incredible. What was it like being in Maine, and what were some of the challenges that you found getting used to living in this new place?
Yeah, so many up here battles, as I like to say. When I first came to Maine, as many people who are seeking refuge that come to the diaspora, they find a lot of barriers and struggles. My family faced many struggles in the beginning, and we still do until today, 15 years later. There's still a lot of adjustment, things that we're just adjusting to. Of course, one of them is language barrier. When my family came here, we did not speak the language. Nobody in our family knew more than 2 or 3 words in English. So that was probably one of the biggest obstacles, especially for my father. someone who was forced to learn the Arabic language growing up in Khartoum, even though his native language is Rutana. So for him, being constantly changing languages was is been so hard for him. Um, but beside that, you know, we were able to immerse ourselves in the culture and in the language, and we were able to learn. I have three brothers who were all enrolled in school, similar to my mother. And my dad struggled a little bit, like I was saying, to go to school because he just thought that he was going to lose himself and lose his identity if he was to learn English, a third or fourth language for him. So yeah, it was language barrier, weather, culture, food, you name it. Every part of who we were and are today was challenged and still being challenged until today.
Wow, and I can imagine that there is just such an incredible difference from one place to another for you. What helped you to overcome the challenges that you mentioned, and what were some resources that were really beneficial for you and your family?
I mean, some of the people and some of the organizations that have been really helpful. One, for example, is Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities is an resettlement agency here in Maine and abroad and across the United States. They were very welcoming to my family, gave us a caseworker who helped us find where we needed to go for grocery shopping to just buy basic needs like food and water. Help us kind of find a caseworker that helped us have an interpreter whenever we needed to go to the hospital, whenever we needed any kind of mail that came to the house read. So I'm still and will forever be grateful to organizations like Catholic Charities and all the case manager that work to help new Mainers adjust, especially here in Maine. Yeah, those, and of course the school. I was very lucky that I went to a very small high school. I I disliked it a lot at the beginning because I was like, it's too small. There's just nobody in the school that looked like me, nobody that I could even cheat with in speaking Arabic. Nothing like that. I had one friend who was from Somalia and she didn't speak Arabic and I didn't speak Somali. So we were the two students in our ELL class learning English together. So I give a lot of credits to my English teacher, Allison Perkins, who is still an amazing mentor of mine until today, who, you know, kind of understood really from the beginning that she has a lot on her plate helping two students learn alphabet as freshmen in high school. But she, you know, used a lot of props, a lot of tools, many trips to Dunkin' Donuts, which I don't know if that was allowed, but she did whatever it took to help us feel comfortable, feel welcome, and feel like it's the right environment for us to learn.
And you really have just hit the ground running and thrived so much and accomplished so much since you've been in Maine. I know you kind of started off getting your college degree and actually becoming a teacher. So tell us a little bit about what that was like and what inspired you to pursue that path.
I think right where I was just stopping right now, the drive that my teachers had in high school was something that no matter who you were, uh, it would push a soft button in your heart. So when I started my freshman year at SMCC, Southern Maine Community College, I did not know that I was going to become a teacher. I actually was enrolled in the nursing program because I just loved nurses, and my mom talked about being a nurse, and I knew it was a need from my community back home in Sudan and here in Portland, Maine. Just the occupation of being a nurse is something that is valued around the world. So I was like, yes, I'm going to go into nursing. And the wait list at SMCC at the time was 2 years just to get into the program. They would enroll you and you would take the prerequisite, but you had to wait 2 years for you to be in the program. And to me, that seemed ridiculous to wait 2 years. So I started taking whatever classes that seemed interesting to me. I took a lot of poetry classes, and that's why today I still write poetry, because I started when I was a freshman, just taking those interesting classes. I took history of world religion, learning more. I am a Muslim, but I wanted to learn more about other religions around me to just give me a better understanding. So it was by accident that I landed my love for education and me pursuing that field. Um, but I say an accident, but a beautiful accident, because I know how dedicated my teachers were and how they helped me find my voice, honestly. Find my voice, not just to be able to speak English, but to know how to use that voice in advocating for things I needed as a person, advocating for, my family, advocating for refugees who are coming new to Maine, advocating for my fellow Sudanese who are still back in the genocide. So that just kind of, all of that combined kind of just gave me a new refined and a new love for teaching, and I pursued being an educator at USM in 2014, and finished my undergraduate courses, and most recently in 2018 when I received my master's in education.
And you touched on this a little bit, and I'm sure our listeners are very curious. Tell us a little bit more about the poetry you do. What does that mean to you, and what types of subjects do you like to write about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, poetry for me started as a freshman in high school, in joining this program called Say It Out Loud. And we used to go to the after school program and just scramble whatever came to your mind. That was our professor, or our lead teacher would say to us, whatever comes to your mind, just write it. It doesn't have to make sense. So I started writing as a freshman, saying how I felt about my school, saying how I felt about my classmates, and how they never understand my Arabic, or they don't understand my hijab, or they don't understand my skin color. Just like fighting basically with my own self, but fighting with this new world and this new environment that I just happen to live in. So that's how my love for poetry kind of began, because it gave me a place where I can express myself, and I didn't have to make it perfect. It can be as as just unfiltered. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone. I can curse in it if I wanted to. I can pour my emotions in English and in Arabic. I have some poems that I wrote in Arabic really early on, because I didn't have the English words at the time. So poetry, and until today, poetry is the way of how I express myself, how I express my frustration with the world, my frustration with myself, my frustration with my family, my frustrations just in general. And my love also. A lot of my poems also are very soft, and they bring out the best of me. Um, and yeah, I write about those things. I write about my room. I have a poem that I wrote about how neat and colorful my room is. It's just like a grocery store. Everything is coordinated in color forms. So yeah, and I look forward to continue writing about just whatever that comes to my mind.
That sounds like such a wonderful release for you, and I'm sure all of us on this call have the same sort of creative outlet that's so helpful. And you mentioned this a couple of questions ago, that there was, a teacher that has really impacted you outside of, your family and the teachers you mentioned. Who or what has been a big inspiration to you as you've really grown and developed as a person?
Yeah, besides, of course, my family, my parents and my brothers and my teachers, I think some people know how huge of a fan I am of Ellen DeGeneres, and how watching her grow, growing up, watching her TV show, and I still watch it till today. I know what happened today on the Ellen show. It's something. She has been someone that I looked up to since I've been in the States, because her TV show was consistent. It was consistent. It was always on. It was always fun, and it was always free. And I mean, I wrote her the letter thanking her for helping me live my world freely, and for teaching me English and teaching me how to be gentle, how to make comedy as a part of the healing process. Really, it's really important for a survivor that has been through so much to find ways to heal. And I never thought it would be comedy or just sitting with the remote and laughing for an hour. But Ellen brought that into my life. So I give her all the credit, and will continue to do that because I'm still laughing until today.
And you mentioned the letter that you wrote to Ellen. And as many of our listeners know, you were featured on the Ellen show. Tell us a little bit about how you got to that point, what that was like, and kind of how being featured on Ellen, featured in publications like Huffington Post and Glamour and CNN had an impact on your life and on the work that you do.
Yeah, I mean, especially the Ellen show. I wake up sometime pinching myself, not sometime, always. I wake up always pinching myself. And I don't think it's been, what, 3 years now. And I still don't believe it was me who was on that show. Uh, but it was such an amazing experience, and a day that I don't think I could ever erase from my memories. How unexpected it happened too. It happened so unexpectedly, and I was just waiting for the hidden cameras to come out and say, "Prank! You're being pranked here." And those hidden cameras never came until I was sitting across Ellen and having a normal conversation, talking about my students at Casco Bay High School, talking about the projects that I'm really have been passionate about, which is celebrating the diversity within ourselves, within our community, within the world itself. There's just so much richness around the world that needs to be celebrated. And I had the opportunity to share that with her. So that was amazing.
That sounds so amazing. And we're going to get into some of the work that you've done in a little bit. But before we kind of jump into that, you've achieved these goals. You've done so many things since you came to Maine. What do you feel like has been the most important for you in achieving these goals that you set out for yourself?
I think what has been important for me is that I have always stayed true to myself. I have never wanted to change. Never a day that came until now that I said I wanted to be someone different. I struggled a lot to just be who I am, to just exist. In my early teens, in high school, even now as an adult, to exist in places that people don't think I should exist in. And I've always challenged that. And I said, why not? Why don't you think I exist here? And I do it not to please the group that I'm trying to put myself in, but to to show them that I do belong. And this world can take all of us. It's such a huge place. It's such a huge community that we can all have a seat at this table. And we don't have to come as someone different. We can come as who we are, truly who we are. Speaking many languages and finding one common language that we can speak together. I mean, of course, here in the US, it's English, but I travel around the world too, and sometimes it's not English. So I think that is what has kept me going and have helped me accomplish finishing school and being able to stick to my roots until today, is just knowing that I believe in who I am and I don't need to change regardless of who comes and say change so you can fit in.
I think that's so powerful. I don't know about everybody else on the call, but that is really something that resonates with me, and it's something I think a lot of us really feel, is that urge to change. And it's such a beautiful message to kind of celebrate who you are, and you really have accomplished so much. So let's talk a little bit about what you've been up to since graduating, since being a teacher, since being on the Ellen show. You have done so much work in the nonprofit space. So talk to us about that, and really why it's so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, some people say I've done a lot. I still feel like I have a whole milestone to go. There's so much that I want to get done, so much, and I feel like, I don't know, I'm behind, but I mean, it's just me trying to be my own negative person. I know that I have accomplished a lot, but I still have so many goals and so many things that I want to accomplish. Since being on the Ellen show, yeah, I was started working a lot more for the United Nations, for UNHCR, especially United Nations for Refugee and Higher Commission, and they help resettle a lot of refugees who are escaping violence, genocide, and atrocities around the world. So I have been an advocate for that, going to Washington, D.C., going to Philadelphia, going to New York City, and helping spread positive story of refugee women, especially. So most recently, before COVID-19, I was asked by the UN to come and speak at the Girl Up Summit, which is a summit that happens in Washington, D.C. They're based in Washington, D.C., and girls come from all over the world to just find themselves. And I was their keynote speak. So things like that, that I've never even imagined that I could do, is things that I'm doing now, inspiring young women to be the leaders of our country, of our world, to show them that they can accomplish whatever goal they set. So those are some, the Girl Up, and also work, that picture that you just saw was from Seeds of Peace. Seeds of Peace is a camp here in Maine, in Oxford, Maine, and I've been a camp facilitator for the past 4 or 5 years for Seeds of Peace, where they bring Palestinian and Israeli delegates to Maine, but now we have more than that. We have Egyptians. That's the international session, and we also have a main session where we have seeds from here, from America, who come from Chicago, from New York, from Lewiston, Maine, from Portland, Maine, and they're all in a dialogue hut together discussing issues that they're struggling with. So I help facilitate those conversations.
And you've really had a broad impact. You've focused some on some of Maine's women and children and refugees. You've also, I know you spent some time advocating down in Washington, D.C. What is the experience like for you being able to travel and tell your story to a wide audience?
I'm always very nervous. But meeting people like our Senator Angus King and his wife, Mary Herfman, bring me back to humble me a lot and bring me down to earth. I always try to distinguish between my job and who I am, even though they're one thing, but people are really interested in the refugee story. So I had to remind myself of that. It's not just because I am Ekhlas Ahmed, but it's also because I am Ekhlas Ahmed, who has a success stories that many people look up to. And at the beginning, that was hard for me to distinguish, to put the two aside, but I really have to kind of sometimes leave Ekhlas behind and just get the work done for many girls and women that are waiting for this work to be done. And that has what kind of motivated me and pushed me to keep going.
And out of all of these things that you've done, is there one accomplishment that you would consider to be kind of your favorite accomplishment so far, or something that you're most proud of that you've done?
Definitely. I mean, starting my nonprofit after the appearance of the Ellen Show, we came back and just so many exciting news after that. A lot of news outlet that were like outside my door. I was like, whoa, this is exciting. But I wanted to find a way of how to make this excitement and this work that we began to be a sustainable work, to be work that happens for generations to come, and also not to benefit one party or one community, to benefit everyone, especially benefit my home country where I had to leave so young, and there's so much that I wanted to see and learn about Sudan and my home country, and I did not have that opportunity. So Chance to Advance was born because of that idea. And Chance to Advance, we have our abbreviations is CTA, and I can put it in the chat, our website, to see what we have been up to. But that has been my proudest accomplishment. It's starting my nonprofit. Right now, I have been partnering up with Catholic Charity, Maine of Refugee Resettlement, OMARS, and we've been producing the calendars that took me to the Ellen Show in the beginning. So we had the 2017 calendars called Celebrating Africa. And then last year we did the Celebrating Diversity 2020. And then this year our calendars are just about to be in the print, and they should be out very soon. Our 2021 calendars called Celebrating Maine, celebrating all the beautiful leaders in our community through a calendar and having them share their story.
And as a side note, Ekhlas was kind enough to share the link with me to those 2021 calendars. So you will all be getting a follow-up email with that information if you would like to support that. So Ekhlas, tell us a little bit more about the local work that you've done with Maine refugees, and how can we as a community help to support those efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing that even, even as a young, high schooler. I would host event in my community to kind of share people's stories, to advertise new restaurants and new, immigrant restaurants that are around us, so we can support them. So I've done that in the past, and I keep doing. Last year we did World Refugee Day at Westbrook Middle School. So those are some things that I'm doing here locally to kind of continue those efforts of bringing community together. First of all, it's to bring people together in one place, because without that, we would never have the opportunity of meeting one another, or hearing one another's story, or seeing how we look. Sometimes pictures are not enough. You need to see the person, you need to hear their story in order for you to make that connection. So that has been my biggest my biggest goal, is to after this COVID-19 hopefully is behind us, we can continue doing that, those face-to-face interactions of seeing someone and hearing their story, and finding the human in both of your stories, because at the end of the day, refugee or not, immigrant or not, we're humans, and we will find something that we have in common. I've also been writing a lot for the paper. More recently, I've been writing for the Portland Phoenix. And to me, that's an effort of also continuing to share stories. It's all about sharing stories for me. So writing for the Portland Phoenix on a monthly basis, I have a column called The Bridge Between, and kind of bringing all of my different identities. And that is to say, all my different identities took me a very long time, because people usually say, you have one or two identity, but to me, it changes almost every month. I have new identities that come out of nowhere. So I have multiple identities that I call them the bridge between, and they all together combinedly make who I am. So I write to the newspaper about, the Black Lives Matter movement. I write about mental health and how we need to take better care of who we are as humans, especially as females, and especially as Black females, because the world is not a nice place sometimes, and people lose humanity and lose kindness and lose love. So through my writing, I like wanted to hint on those things, like how can we love each other more? How can we be more patient and be more willing to forgive and not let stereotypical things define who we are as a humankind. So those are just some few things that I get to do, and they're all things that I'm really passionate about.
And they're all things that are really inspiring, to be honest. I think all of us can really resonate with these topics that you're writing about, and they're so powerful. So I'm sure the question on everybody's mind after hearing all of these things you've done is, what's next for you? Where are we going to see you popping up next? What are some goals that you have for yourself for the future?
That's a really good question. I wish I had an answer. I don't even know what my plans are for the future. My plans are to remain who I am. That's my plan, my number one plan. And also to enjoy life. I know that our conversation has been all, practically and serious and very important conversation, but I feel like I missed a lot on being able to just get up and not have a plan, just get up and just be bored and let my boredom direct me somewhere. Not for too long, just for a few days, for a few months, but to enjoy life, because life is just it's going by already so fast. It's happening in the blink of an eye, and I don't want to miss an opportunity. I want to have time to enjoy my family, to enjoy my friends, to just be whatever. That's on one side, and then on the other side, I see myself working for Oprah and and traveling the world, continuing the work that I'm doing now. I'm just waiting for Oprah to respond to my letter, just like Ellen did. I don't know if I'll be this lucky again, but you never know. I really want to travel the world and teach women self-love and self-care and how to be gentle. I feel like growing up all my life, all my family, all my friends always have to put this strong face on, because they are the backbone of their families. They are, the moms of the home. They are the sisters of the house. They have to be strong. They have to continue leading. And that is so much pressure that we ask of women, so much pressure that we ask of girls. And it's so hard to dismantle that and to say, let it go and let someone else lead, because you deserve a break for a day or for a month. And that message, I never hear it. I want to say, I never hear it anywhere for people to say, take a break. It's going to be okay. And it has a lot of damages. And I've seen the damage of that, of always having to be strong, or always having be the one that had, people come to for answers, or people depend on their paycheck for them to survive. So to me, I see this a lot in my country of Sudan, and for such young girls who then that's the only thing they know. They don't know how to stop that. So I really wish that I can continue this work on a bigger platform. If it is through Mama Oprah or not, Mama Oprah is someone that I looked up to growing up. I will look up to forever, because she's a true example of of who we are as human, of who we are as women, who we are as Black women, the struggle that we endured from really young on until today. Even at her age, the struggles that she is overcoming is an inspirational to me. So if I can, continue that work in any aspect, in a small way or in a big way, um, I'll be extremely happy.
I love the breadth of those goals. Those are so ambitious, and I'm just so excited for you. And I think you really touched on a point that resonates with so many of us, which is being busy and taking on leadership roles and really pushing ourselves and not taking that time for self-care. So I'm so happy that you brought that up. I think a lot of us needed to hear that tonight. And what are some ways that you have found beneficial for you to care for yourself while you've been advancing towards your goals?
Yeah, I mean, it's not until very recently, until I was forced to be home, to be honest, because of this pandemic, um, where I realized how much I was giving so much to my family, so much to my friends, and so much to the world, which is awesome. But I was doing nothing to take care of myself and to kind of, fill that cup every time it was getting low, to fill it with more love, with more care, with more attention. I realized how empty my cup was once, we were all in lockdown, and I didn't know where to begin. I struggled a lot to like get up out of my bed for the first, like 2 weeks. I just was very miserable, and slowly began to like listen to music, and kind of calming myself down, and like just telling myself it's going to be okay. I literally tell this to people all the time. So then I was like, I need to tell it to myself. It's going to be okay. Enjoying a lot of walks. I lucky enough that my family moved to Wyndham, such a beautiful area, and we have a lot of beautiful trails in Wyndham. So I find myself waking up at 6:30 in the morning. That's the teacher's schedule. 6:30 in the when it's still a little bit dark, and just like space out and put my headphones on, listen to Mary J. Blige. Love her music a lot, and listening to a lot of my country songs in Sudan. It's a lot of women singers who are using singing and their voice to change society in Sudan. So I listen to their voices often. I write whenever I have a chance. I sit down and just write things on a piece of paper, and then I don't read them. I don't read them after. I just write. The whole act, just putting the pen down and writing, um, and then watching some music videos, buying myself flowers. I actually like bought myself flowers today. I don't know if you guys can see, but I brought like buy myself flowers, cook more often, like just eating healthy, being out in nature. Um, yeah, and again, like I was saying earlier, not to have my schedule so fully booked, like I normally have. Usually, like my schedule is, I even have time when to eat and when to sleep. And to me, because I was a full-time teacher, a full-time student as I was getting my master's degree, I was a full-time daughter, full-time sister, full-time friend, full-time community organizer, full-time, executive director at Chance to Advance, and 5 active email accounts. And I never thought how that was just so much. And now I'm taking the time to take layers off and to know when to say no. I'm sorry, I can't do that.
And I think that's so important, knowing when to say no and when to to set boundaries. And we have had quite a few questions come in from our audience. So I'm going to start asking you some of those so we make sure we have time to get through them all. So the first question is actually related to what we were just talking about, which is, as you're doing all of these things, how are you staying energized and inspired, even when you might face some stress and some challenges?
One of those, when I don't know if a lot of people go through this, but sometimes I just wake up in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3:30 in the morning, and like a bubble goes on, or a light goes on. There is nothing to me that can be worse than what I have already experienced. Nothing worse than being able to rush out of your home, being able to start learning a new language at the age of 13, 14 years old. Nothing like not knowing what tomorrow is going to be like, not knowing if you will have your religion or faith when living in the US. Islam is being targeted on a daily basis. Not knowing if you will, change your skin color because everybody's telling you black is not beautiful. Not knowing if you are going to get married at the age of 20 and not being able to fulfill your passions, being able to live without having marriage as your number one success, because that is what success means to many people in my community, being married. So to me, I have already hit all the bottom. There is no other bottom than what I have already experienced. So it can only get better from here. And that's what came to me at 2:30 in the morning, is that there is nothing that I'm so fortunate. I am so fortunate that I had experienced all these, yes, people might say horrible things, but they have taught me so many important lessons that I am able now to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I am able to say, no, I am not gonna marry at this age. I want to get married when I finish doing this, and I'm not gonna feel guilty doing that. And being able to, again, like I was saying earlier, to all of these hate that come from all the different groups that I've seen in my life, to know that their hate is not my hate, because to me, I am filled with so much love and joy. And that is what I'm going to pursue. I'm not going to pursue those other side things that are coming at me. So really, I've hit the bottom. And when you hit the bottom, there's just only room for growth and opportunities.
Wow, that is just such an impactful way to look at the things that you've been through, and to really motivate yourself to move forward in such a positive manner. I'm really blown away. I'm sure everybody else listening is as well. So tell us, since you've been doing work with nonprofits and refugees in the Maine area, have you seen a change in the resources that are available, in how you feel refugees are accepted in Maine since you have arrived?
Yeah, I mean, I arrived here very, 2005, 6, and at that time, if you walked on Congress Street downtown Portland, barely for you to recognize someone, or to recognize someone that to recognize someone that looks like you. But those things, like, you cannot say that today. Walking down Portland, Maine feels like you're in the middle of New York, because it's just filled with diversity, filled with so much light, filled with so much talent, filled with so much art. You feel like there is home here. There is like soul in this place, and that's what I have seen change. Growing up here in Portland and in Wyndham, is the change that and to see that people are working toward change. Maybe a long time ago, 10, 11 years, our community didn't even know what is their ultimate goal. But today, I feel like many organizations in Maine are working toward a more inclusive Maine, a Maine that includes people from different age groups, people, different genders, different races, different religions. And those conversations we were not having back then. But today it's on the menu of every organization. So there's a lot has changed.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's just so uplifting to know that we're moving in such a positive direction.
Yeah, for sure. You know, we still have a lot work to get done for sure. Not to underestimate how much work we still need to do as Maine because we are so behind. Um, but to just see that the work has begun is very encouraging.
And do you have any suggestions you can share with the audience for ways that Maine communities can better support local immigrants?
Yeah, I mean, not too many advices. My advice that I always share is that they exist. You know, refugee or immigrant communities exist. You just have to look for them. You have to be conscious with your thinking. If you know, even during the holidays, where do I want to shop? Do I want to shop at the same place where I have always been shopping, or do I want to find more local, you know, immigrant or different groups of people that I haven't thought about that might exist here, and do just a little bit of research. I mean, of course, we live in such a different times now with the COVID-19 pandemic, but before that there was always event, and like Jambo Africa newspaper always advertises events that are happening. Now we have the Greater Portland Immigrant Welcome Center that also advertises, that are also doing a lot of, you know, a lot of nonprofit work. So to me, it's just, my advice is to look because there is, whatever you're looking for is there.
I love that concept of supporting local, especially this holiday season. I know from experience there's so many wonderful places in the Portland area that we can support. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Our next audience question, actually a couple of folks have asked this since you were chatting about self-care, and you brought up that one of the things you like to do is cook yourself healthy meals. The audience would love to know, what is your favorite dish that you make for yourself?
Before I answer that question, just going back and saying how, if supporting more immigrant or refugee businesses, we have social media now that is, you know, before was not a big platform to use, but now is a huge platform, and very, you know, very useful. So even asking questions on social media, saying to folks, you know, I want to, you know, maybe try an Eritrean dish or a Somali dish, or a I want to buy jewelry from Ebenezer, who is an amazing jewelry designer here in Maine. His work is amazing. He makes jewelry from symbols from his native country in Ghana. So, you know, asking those questions, even if you don't have the answers to, or if Google doesn't have the answers to, reaching out to your circle of friends on Facebook, on Twitter, on all the social media platforms. I think it's really hard question to say which is my favorite meal to cook, because I'm such a foodie. I love to eat. So I like had that habit of eating out a lot, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it too much. So you know, try to stay home. Most of the things I cook are to remind me of Sudan. I don't want to lose that sense of smell and sense of taste from my senses. So I cook a dish called jima, which I actually made not too long ago. Jima, if we had to describe it, would be like something potato shepherd or pie shepherd. I don't know the terminology, but it's made
Shepherd's pie, maybe?
shepherd's pie. Yes, because it's made with potato, ground beef, garlic sauce, a lot of like beautiful just aromas happen in our kitchen whenever I make that dish. It's very simple. My siblings love it. Actually, my brother, who was in Orno, like would call, like, I'm coming home, make this dish for me, because it's really fun. The ingredients are not too many things that you can find in many of the grocery store, which is why I cook it a lot, because some traditional food is hard to find it, the items in grocery stores. But this one, which I told my mom she needs to like write a recipe book. I'm like, mother, this is so good. I would open a restaurant with just one dish. Just one dish. The potatoes are fried with a little bit of oil. And after they become like French fries, kind of, you add the ground beef that is, mixed with the, like I was saying, with the garlic sauce and a little bit of tomato paste. And then you mix everything together and you add cilantro at the end and a little bit of lemon, lime juice, and a little bit of hot sauce. So.
Wow. Well, my mouth is watering. I can tell you that some of the folks have dropped in the chat that they would love that recipe. So if you have a recipe for that and can email it to us, we would love to share it with everyone, because I think you've just made us all incredibly hungry.
Yes, very delicious.
Sounds it. And one last question from our audience is, what books are you reading, or what are your favorite books that you enjoy?
Yeah. And the weirdest thing is that as much as I love writing, I don't know why I've never got in the habit of reading. And actually, it was only 2 years ago that I actually forced myself to sit down and finish a book, just only 2 years ago. That's one of my embarrassment moments in my life. But it was because, again, saying how I told you guys how busy I was, all my life I have been very busy. And even in college, when we had to read a book, I was like, you want us to read 100 pages? Do you know who I am? Do you know how much things I have to get done, professor? So what I used to do, as many college students would still are doing, is just scan through the book. And I don't recommend that to my students today. I see how damaging it is to the wonderful habit of just having a book and reading and finishing that. But it took me a long time to get there, because I was not reading to learn. I was just reading to get the work done, to complete the assignment, until I, start reading books that I love to, small poetry books. I'm on the board of the Telling Room, Young Leaders and program here in Portland, Maine. Very proud board member at the Telling Room, since the Telling Room came to my life at an amazing time in high school, where I was able to share my story, and it was a published book. So I joined the board about 3 years ago, and all the books that our students write are like top in my room. This all Telling Room books. The newest one that I'm reading now is called A New Land, that feature Maine poets, young leaders, young authors, and their stories. Just finding so many commonalities, reading their stories is just, again, it humbles me, it grounds me, and it reinforces that I'm not alone in this fight, in this journey. Of course, I loved, and I'm going to keep reading Michelle Obama's book, even for 100 times. Becoming, that book, just, it's a gift. It's a gift for someone like me. And I almost every chapter I would stop, cry a little bit, get some tea, and then go back and then read the next chapter. Just knowing how many hurdles she still is fighting till today, and then I also most recently read Ilhan Omar's book, This Is What America Looks Like. Amazing story, from being in Kenya and Somalia to being a congresswoman in Washington, D.C. Her story is captures the American dream, especially for a immigrant refugee woman. like myself. So those are just some few books. I tried to read Arabic. I left school when I was in 5th grade, and then so my reading is not as strong as my speaking. I speak fluent Arabic. I interpret for Maine Medical sometimes. So that's how I keep practicing my Arabic, but my reading and writing has not where I want it to be. So that's why I try to find poems in Arabic that I can practice.
Well, I know I have read Michelle Obama's book, but the other one you mentioned is on my reading list, and now I'm very, very excited to get into it. So, Ekhlas, I just want to say a big thank you for joining us. We are so appreciative of having you here, and I know everybody in the chat has been saying, you know, we're all so inspired by everything that you've accomplished. We can't wait to see what you're going to do next.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Beginning January, I will be CTA, my nonprofit. After our release party for the calendars, we are going back to my home country of Sudan in the school where I went. We're donating 100 books, 100 backpacks, 100 pencils and pens and toys for students. The 100 books are part of our project called Building Libraries. In my school where those students are learning right now, they don't have a library. And to me, I'm like, how can they become leaders of tomorrow without a strong foundation? So my nonprofit is going to spend 1 month in Sudan, beginning of January 1st until January 30th, to complete this mission. If anybody wants to learn more, of course, you can check out our CTA if you want to donate, if you want to learn more. I'm super excited for that.
That is amazing. What a positive note to end this conversation on. Thank you so much. And really, thank you to all of us who have joined us tonight. We're so excited to have you here. Stay tuned. We're going to pop up a couple of poll questions for you. And there's a quick post-event survey when you exit. But thank you again for joining us. We hope to see all of you for our next WeAreME event, which is going to be on February 3rd. We're going to be chatting with Jennifer Lever, who is a native Mainer and the current president of Baxter Brewing. She's going to be chatting with us about how she has thrived in an industry that is dominated by male leadership and really what has set her apart in that. So sure to be a really great conversation. You can visit our website, our social media pages, or click the link that we just dropped in the chat to register for that. So once again, thank you, Ekhlas. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful week.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.